What happens when Hollywood's most enigmatic actor meets a talk show host determined to crack his carefully constructed persona? What starts as routine promotion for a new film quickly spirals into television's most uncomfortable confrontation, where every question becomes a weapon and every answer a defense. Tonight, we're diving deep into the explosive clash that left audiences stunned, and one A-list actor walking off set. But before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered this whole situation. The Tonight Show with Jimmy Kimmel was supposed to be just another stop on Ryan Gosling's promotional tour. The actor had been making rounds promoting his latest indie thriller, a passion project that had taken him 3 years to bring to the screen. But from the moment Gosling walked onto that stage, something felt different. The usual charm and practiced ease that characterized his previous appearances seemed replaced by something more guarded, more intense. "Ryan Gosling, everybody," Jimmy announced with his trademark grin as the audience applauded. "Thanks for being here, man. I know you're busy with the new movie, but I have to say, you look a little serious tonight. Everything okay?" Gosling settled into the guest chair, his blue eyes already showing a hint of wariness. "I'm fine, Jimmy. Just here to talk about the film." "Right, the film," Jimmy said, leaning back in his chair with a knowing smile. "But before we get to that, I have to ask about something that's been all over social media. There's this video of you at a coffee shop last week, and you seem to be having quite the animated conversation with someone off camera. Care to explain what that was about?" The question hit the studio like a cold wave. Gosling's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. "I don't know what video you're referring to, Jimmy. I have a lot of conversations." "Oh, come on," Jimmy pressed, his grin widening. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The one where you're gesturing pretty wildly and you look, well, let's just say not your usual cool and collected self. My producers pulled it up, and I have to say it's quite entertaining." "Your producers pulled it up?" Gosling's voice carried a new edge now. "So you're showing paparazzi footage of me having a private conversation?" "Hey, it's public domain," Jimmy shrugged, his tone still light but with an underlying current of something sharper. "You were in a public place. People film things. That's just how it works in Hollywood, right? You know that better than anyone." The audience was beginning to sense the shift in atmosphere. What had started as typical talk show banter was developing an uncomfortable undertone. Gosling leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped in front of him. "There's a difference between being in public and having someone deliberately invade your privacy for entertainment," he said quietly. "I thought this was supposed to be about the movie." "It is about the movie," Jimmy replied, his smile never wavering. "But you know what audiences want to hear about. They want to know about the real Ryan Gosling, not just the character you play on screen. That's what makes good television. The real Ryan Gosling is an actor who's here to discuss his work," Gosling responded, his voice remaining level but with an undercurrent of steel. "If you want to talk about characters, let's talk about the character I actually play in the film." Jimmy chuckled and shook his head. "You're really not going to give us anything, are you? Come on, Ryan. Loosen up a little. Your fans want to see the guy behind the movies. They want to know what makes you tick, what gets under your skin, what makes you lose that famous composure." "What makes me lose my composure," Gosling said slowly, "is when people think they're entitled to every aspect of my life just because I'm an actor. But since you seem so interested in what gets under my skin, why don't we talk about hosts who think ambushing their guests makes for good television?" The studio fell silent. Jimmy's smile faltered for just a moment before returning, but now it seemed more forced, more calculated. "Ambushing? Come on, Ryan. It's just a conversation. This is what talk shows are for." "Conversations usually involve mutual respect," Gosling replied. "What you're doing is trying to create a moment at my expense. You're not interested in my work or my thoughts on the industry. You want me to have a breakdown on camera so you can have a viral clip. Jimmy's laugh came out a little too loud, a little too bright. Wow, okay. I think someone needs to relax a little. We're just having fun here. Fun for who? Gosling asked, his blue eyes now locked directly on Jimmy's. Fun for you? Fun for your audience? Because I can tell you right now this isn't fun for me. This is you trying to turn my discomfort into your content. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Members of the audience were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether they were witnessing genuine conflict or some kind of elaborate setup. But there was something in Gosling's voice, something raw and unscripted, that suggested this was very real. Look, Ryan, Jimmy said, his tone becoming slightly more serious but still maintaining that underlying smugness. I get that you value your privacy. We all do. But you're here to promote a movie, and part of promotion is giving the audience something to connect with. They want to see you as a person, not just as this mysterious figure who only talks about craft and artistic vision. And what? If the person I am is someone who doesn't want to perform his private life for strangers? Gosling shot back. What if the person I am believes that my work should speak for itself? What if I think there's something fundamentally wrong with a system that demands I turn my personal struggles into entertainment? Jimmy spread his hands as if to say he was being reasonable. Hey, nobody's forcing you to do anything. But this is how the game works, man. You want people to see your movies, you've got to give them something. That's the trade-off. The trade-off, Gosling repeated, his voice quiet but intense. So in your mind, the price of being an actor is surrendering any expectation of basic human dignity? The price of making art is letting people like you pick apart my private moments for laughs? The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This was unlike anything they had ever seen on a late-night talk show. The usual rhythm of setup and punchline had been replaced by something much more raw and unpredictable. I think, you're being a little dramatic, Jimmy said, but his confidence was clearly beginning to waver. We're talking about a coffee shop video, not some deep invasion of privacy. It's not about the video, Gosling said, his voice rising slightly for the first time. It's about the attitude. It's about the assumption that because I'm an actor, my life is fair game for your entertainment. It's about the idea that my discomfort is somehow funny to you. Jimmy tried to regain control of the situation. Okay, let's take a step back here. Why don't we talk about the movie? That's what you came here for, right? But Gosling wasn't backing down. Now you want to talk about the movie? After spending the first 10 minutes trying to embarrass me on national television? After making it clear that you're more interested in turning me into a spectacle than having an actual conversation about my work? Jimmy's mask was beginning to slip. The practiced television host persona was giving way to something uglier, something more desperate. You know what, Ryan? I'm trying to do you a favor here. I'm trying to make you relatable to normal people. Because right now, you're coming across as this pretentious, self-important actor who thinks he's too good for the audience that pays to see his movies. The words hung in the air like poison. Gosling stared at Jimmy for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Too good for the audience? Is that what you think this is about? I think, Jimmy said, leaning forward with renewed aggression, that you've been in Hollywood so long you've forgotten what it's like to be a regular person. You've forgotten that people work double shifts just to afford a movie ticket, and, when they do, they want to feel like they know something about the person they're watching. And you think the way to honor those people is by turning their entertainment into a circus? Gosling asked. You think the best way to respect someone who works double shifts is to show them an actor being humiliated on television? Jimmy scoffed. Humiliated? Come on, I asked you about a video. That's not humiliation, that's conversation. But apparently, any question that isn't about your artistic process is beneath you. Any question that's designed to make me look foolish is beneath basic human decency, Gosling shot back. But you don't seem to understand that distinction. What I understand, Jimmy said, his voice growing sharper, is that you signed up for this life. Nobody forced you to become an actor. Nobody forced you to take roles in major movies. You chose this career, and this career comes with certain expectations. Gosling's eyes flashed. So because I chose to be an actor, I chose to be your personal entertainment? Because I wanted to tell stories, I somehow signed away my right to be treated with respect. You signed away your right to complete privacy the moment you decided you wanted to be famous, Jimmy replied, his tone becoming more combative. That's just reality. And frankly, I'm getting a little tired of actors who want all the benefits of fame without any of the responsibilities. Responsibilities? Gosling's voice rose again. What responsibilities? The responsibility to let you mock me on national television? The responsibility to pretend that invasive questions are just part of friendly conversation? Jimmy threw his hands up in exasperation. The responsibility to connect with your audience? The responsibility to be grateful for the platform you've been given? Do you have any idea how many people would kill to be sitting in that chair right now? And do you have any idea how many of those people would be just as uncomfortable as I am right now if you treated them the way you're treating me? Gosling countered. The audience was transfixed. This wasn't the polished, scripted drama they were used to seeing on television. This was real conflict, raw and unfiltered, playing out before their eyes. Some looked uncomfortable, others seemed unable to look away, but all of them sensed they were witnessing something unprecedented. Jimmy tried a different tactic, his voice taking on a patronizing tone. Look, Ryan, I get it. You're an artist. You take your work seriously. But at the end of the day, we're in the entertainment business. People tune in to be entertained. They don't want to hear about method acting and character motivation for 30 minutes. So instead, they should hear about my private conversations in coffee shops? Gosling asked incredulously. Instead of discussing the 3 years I spent developing this character, the research I did, the people I worked with, you'd rather talk about paparazzi footage? I'd rather talk about whatever makes good television, Jimmy said bluntly. And right now, your reaction to that footage is making much better television than any discussion about your process ever could. The honesty of the statement was stunning. Jimmy had just admitted on live television that he cared more about creating drama than about respecting his guest or providing meaningful content to his audience. Gosling sat back in his chair, shaking, his head slowly. There it is. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You just admitted that you're more interested in exploiting my discomfort than in having an actual conversation. I'm interested in giving my audience what they want, Jimmy replied defensively. And what they want is authenticity. They want to see the real you, not some carefully constructed public persona. The real me, Gosling said slowly, is someone who believes that human beings deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of their profession. The real me is someone who thinks that good television shouldn't come at the expense of basic respect. But apparently, that's not the kind of authenticity you're looking for. Jimmy's frustration was becoming more apparent. You know what? Fine. Let's talk about your movie. Let's talk about your artistic vision. But don't expect the audience to stay awake. The insult was clear and deliberate. Jimmy wasn't just attacking Gosling personally now, he was attacking his work, suggesting that anything meaningful or substantive was inherently boring. Gosling's response was measured but pointed. You know what I find interesting, Jimmy? You keep talking about what the audience wants, but you never actually ask them. You assume they want to see conflict and embarrassment. You assume they're not intelligent enough to appreciate a conversation about craft or creativity. Maybe the problem isn't that I'm too pretentious. Maybe the problem is that you're underestimating the people who watch your show. Don't lecture me about my audience, Jimmy snapped. I've been doing this for years. I know what works and what doesn't. And what doesn't work is actors sitting there talking about their art like they're in some graduate seminar. And what does work is turning guests into punching bags for your amusement? Gosling asked. What works is making people uncomfortable and then mocking them for being uncomfortable. Jimmy's facade was crumbling completely now. What works is entertainment. What works is giving people something to talk about the next day. What works is creating moments that people remember. And right now, whether you like it or not, we're creating a moment. We're creating a moment where you've shown your audience exactly who you are, Gosling said quietly. We're creating a moment where you've demonstrated that you value spectacle over substance, conflict over conversation, and humiliation over humanity. The studio was electric with tension. Staff members were exchanging worried glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation continue. The audience sat in stunned silence, watching as their familiar late-night routine transformed into something far more serious and uncomfortable. Jimmy made one last attempt to regain control. You know what, Ryan? I think you need to take a step back and remember where you are. This is my show. These are my rules. And if you don't like how I run things, you're welcome to leave. The threat was clear and unmistakable. Jimmy was using his position of power to try to force Gosling into submission, to make him choose between enduring further humiliation or walking away from the promotional opportunity he had come there for. Gosling looked at Jimmy for a long moment, his expression shifting from anger to something that might have been disappointment or even pity. When he spoke, his voice was calm but filled with quiet intensity. You're absolutely right, Jimmy. This is your show. These are your rules. And you've just shown everyone exactly what those rules are. He stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. The audience held its collective breath, sensing that something significant was about to happen. Your rules are that guests exist to be exploited for content. Your rules are that privacy is a luxury that celebrities don't deserve. Your rules are that humiliation is entertainment, and that people who object to being humiliated are pretentious. Jimmy shifted uncomfortably in his chair, perhaps beginning to realize that he had pushed too far. Ryan, come on, sit back down. Let's just move on and talk about the movie. But Gosling remained standing, his voice growing stronger. Now you want to talk about the movie? After you've spent the entire interview demonstrating that you have no respect for me as a person or as an artist? After you've made it clear that you think my work is boring and my boundaries are unreasonable? I never said your work was boring, Jimmy protested weakly. You said the audience would fall asleep if we talked about it, Gosling replied calmly. But you know what I think? I think you're wrong about your audience. I think they're smarter than you give them credit for. I think they're capable of engaging with ideas that go beyond gossip and manufactured drama. The camera operator was getting nervous, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut away. Producers were frantically gesturing from the wings, but no one seemed to know quite what to do. This was uncharted territory. Jimmy tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out forced and hollow. Okay, you're really taking this way too seriously. It's just television, man. It's supposed to be fun. Fun for who? Gosling asked, echoing his earlier question. It's fun for you because you get to tear someone down on national television. It's fun for you because you get to feel powerful by making your guest uncomfortable. But it's not fun for me, and I suspect it's not really fun for your audience either. My audience loves this show, Jimmy said defensively. They tune in every night. They tune in hoping to see something genuine, Gosling replied. They tune in hoping to connect with people they admire, to learn something new, to be entertained in a way that doesn't make them feel bad about themselves. But what you're giving them is a masterclass in cruelty disguised as entertainment. The words hit Jimmy like physical blows. His face was flushed now, his composure completely shattered. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about television or about what audiences want. I know about human decency, Gosling said simply. I know about treating people with respect. I know about the difference between entertainment and exploitation. And right now, you're showing everyone in this studio and everyone watching at home exactly where you stand on those issues." Jimmy's voice became desperate, almost pleading. "Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe I pushed a little too hard. But that's just how this works. That's just television." "No," Gosling said firmly. "That's not how it has to work. That's just how you've chosen to make it work. You've decided that your entertainment is more important than other people's dignity. You've decided that your ratings are more important than basic human respect." The audience was completely silent, transfixed by the confrontation. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed to be re-evaluating everything they thought they knew about their favorite late-night host. Jimmy made one final attempt to salvage the situation. "Fine. You want to talk about the movie? Let's talk about the movie. Let's start over." But Gosling was already shaking his head. "It's too late for that, Jimmy. You can't unsay what you've said. You can't undo what you've done. You've shown everyone exactly who you are when you think you have power over someone." "I was just doing my job," Jimmy said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Your job," Gosling repeated thoughtfully. "Your job is to interview people, to help them share their stories, to create a space where meaningful conversation can happen. But you've decided that your job is to create conflict, to generate controversy, to turn every guest into a potential source of drama." Jimmy's desperation was palpable now. The network expects ratings. The producers want viral moments. This is how the business works. "And there it is," Gosling said with a sad smile. "The business. Not the art, not the craft, not the service to the audience. The business. You've just admitted that you're willing to sacrifice everything decent about what you do for the sake of the business." The studio fell into an even deeper silence, if that was possible. Staff members looked at each other uncertainly, unsure whether this was a disaster or the most compelling television they had ever witnessed. Gosling began walking toward the edge of the set, but he turned back to face Jimmy one more time. "You know what the real tragedy is here? You actually have talent. You have charisma. You have timing. You have the ability to connect with people. But you've chosen to use those gifts to tear people down instead of building them up." Jimmy's face was a mask of confusion and anger. "Where are you going? You can't just leave in the middle of the interview." "I can," Gosling said simply. "And I am. Because this isn't an interview anymore. This is a performance of cruelty, and I refuse to be part of it." "You're making a huge mistake," Jimmy called after him. "You're going to regret this. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to your career?" Gosling paused at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. "My career will survive. My integrity wouldn't have if I had stayed." The threat in Jimmy's voice was unmistakable now. The mask completely gone. "You think you can just walk away from this? You think there won't be consequences?" "I'm sure there will be consequences," Gosling replied calmly. "But they'll be worth it if even one person watching this learns something about the difference between entertainment and exploitation." Jimmy stood up from his desk, his voice rising to a shout. "You're nothing without publicity. You're nothing without shows like this. You need us more than we need you." But Gosling was already walking away, his back straight and his head held high. As he reached the exit, he turned to address the audience directly, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "To everyone watching at home, you deserve better than this. You deserve entertainment that doesn't come at the cost of human dignity. You deserve hosts who respect their guests and their audience. And most importantly, you deserve to know that it's okay to expect better." And with that, he was gone, leaving behind a studio full of shocked faces and a host whose true nature had been exposed for all to see. Jimmy stood alone at his desk, the cameras still rolling, his carefully constructed television persona in ruins. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or sit in stunned silence. The producers were frantically trying to figure out how to salvage what was left of the show, But the damage was done. In the space of one interview, everything had changed. The comfortable illusion of friendly late-night television had been shattered, replaced by an uncomfortable but necessary truth about power, respect, and the price of entertainment. As the credits rolled over the chaos, one thing was clear. This was a moment that would be remembered, discussed, and debated for years to come. And in the end, it would be remembered not as the night Jimmy Kimmel destroyed a difficult guest, but as the night Ryan Gosling stood up for something more important than publicity or career advancement. He stood up for the simple principle that every human being, regardless of their profession or their fame, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. So what do you think? Was Ryan Gosling right to walk away? Or should celebrities just accept this kind of treatment as part of the job? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from Hollywood's most dramatic moments.